The US dollar has reigned supreme for decades, providing significant economic and geopolitical advantages. However, the global landscape is shifting, with emerging economies gaining influence. What would happen if the dollar were to lose its coveted position? This essay explores the potential consequences of such a seismic shift in the world's financial order. We will examine historical precedents, immediate and long-term implications, and potential strategies for the U.S. to navigate this new reality. While daunting, the dollar's decline presents an opportunity for the U.S. to adapt and innovate. Join us as we explore this complex issue. To understand the ramifications of the dollar losing its reserve currency status, it's essential to grasp the concept itself. The US dollar ascended to its dominant position post-World War II, solidified by the Bretton Woods Agreement. Today, it constitutes the largest share of global foreign exchange reserves and is used for international trade and commodities markets. However, this position is not guaranteed forever. Emerging markets and technological advancements are challenging the dollar's dominance. The U.S. derives significant benefits from the dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency. This includes lower borrowing costs and significant geopolitical leverage. The dollar's dominance provides a stable environment for international trade and investment. However, this privilege comes with responsibilities. Failure to maintain the dollar's stability could lead to its displacement as the world's reserve currency. The US dollar's ascent to global reserve currency status resulted from historical circumstances post-World War II. The Bretton Woods system pegged other major currencies to the US dollar, fostering international trade and investment. This system facilitated rapid global economic growth. However, the reliance on a fixed exchange rate regime eventually proved unsustainable, leading to the end of the Bretton Woods system in 1971. The US dollar's rise is intertwined with the decline of the British pound sterling. The pound's dominance waned due to 2 world wars and the decline of the British Empire. The parallels between the pound's decline and the potential future of the dollar are striking. Recognizing these factors is crucial for understanding the potential challenges facing the US dollar in the 21st century. The US dollar's dominance is not unchallenged. Concerns include the persistent US current account deficit and the rise of alternative currencies like the Chinese yuan. Technological advancements, such as digital currencies, also challenge the existing financial order. This evolving landscape presents both challenges and opportunities for the future of the US dollar. Understanding these factors is crucial for preparing for a potential transition. The immediate aftermath of the dollar losing its reserve currency status would be a global economic earthquake. A sharp spike in interest rates would likely plunge the U.S. economy into a deep recession. The Federal Reserve might resort to unconventional measures to stabilize the financial system. However, the effectiveness of such measures in a post-dollar world is uncertain. The ramifications of a diminished dollar would extend far beyond U.S. borders. Countries would scramble to find alternatives, leading to uncertainty and volatility in currency markets. A weaker dollar would make U.S. exports more competitive, but fuel inflation. The loss of the dollar's reserve currency status would diminish the effectiveness of U.S. economic sanctions. Beyond the economic fallout, the geopolitical implications of a dollar dethronement would be profound. The U.S.'s ability to shape international institutions and norms would be weakened. The U.S. would need to adapt to a less dominant role, relying more on diplomacy and strategic partnerships. Addressing underlying economic weaknesses is crucial for maintaining its standing in the world. The long-term consequences of a diminished dollar would reverberate through the fabric of American society, forcing a profound reassessment of its economic model and its role in the world. For decades, the United States has enjoyed the unique privilege of being able to consume more than it produces, financing its lavish lifestyle with debt readily financed by the rest of the world's insatiable appetite for dollar-denominated assets. This era of American exceptionalism, however, would come to an end as the economic tide recedes, exposing the structural weaknesses that have long been masked by the dollar's dominance. One of the most significant domestic consequences would be the need for a painful economic rebalancing. The United States would be forced to transition from a consumption-driven economy, fueled by debt, to one that prioritizes savings, investment, and export-led growth. This would require a fundamental shift in mindset, as well as concrete policy changes to incentivize domestic production, encourage innovation, and reduce reliance on foreign borrowing. Such a transformation would inevitably lead to political and social upheaval. The loss of exorbitant privilege would translate into a lower standard of living for many Americans, as they face higher prices for imported goods, reduced access to credit, and potentially stagnant wages. This could fuel social unrest, exacerbate political polarization, and lead to the rise of populist movements challenging the existing economic order. The U.S. government would face immense pressure to address these challenges. Fiscal policy would need to prioritize investments in infrastructure, education, and research and development to enhance productivity and competitiveness. Monetary policy would need to navigate the treacherous waters of inflation and currency depreciation, while also supporting economic growth. The task before policymakers would be daunting, requiring a delicate balancing act and a long-term vision to guide the nation through this turbulent period. The decline of the dollar would not occur in isolation. It would be symptomatic of a broader shift in global economic power dynamics, leading to a multipolar currency system where no single currency holds absolute sway. This new order would be characterized by greater regionalization, with the euro, the Chinese yuan, and potentially other currencies vying for influence within their respective spheres. The euro, backed by the economic weight of the eurozone, would likely emerge as a major beneficiary of the dollar's decline. The eurozone, despite its internal challenges, represents a significant economic bloc with the potential to challenge the dollar's dominance, particularly in trade and finance within Europe and parts of Africa. The euro's rise would be further bolstered by the European Central Bank's efforts to promote its use in international transactions and its role as a reserve currency. China, with its burgeoning economy and ambitions for global leadership, would also seek to expand the yuan's influence. While the yuan faces significant hurdles to becoming a truly global reserve currency, including capital controls and a lack of full convertibility, China's growing economic clout and its efforts to internationalize its currency would likely accelerate in a post-dollar world. China's Belt and Road Initiative, aimed at building infrastructure and fostering trade ties across Asia, Africa, and Europe, would further facilitate the yuan's expansion. This multipolar currency system would be more complex and potentially less stable than the dollar-dominated system it replaces. Exchange rates would be more volatile as multiple currencies compete for dominance. Central banks would face greater challenges managing their reserves and maintaining financial stability. The risk of currency wars and competitive devaluations would increase as countries seek to gain a trade advantage by manipulating their exchange rates. The transition to a multipolar world order would require the United States to adapt its foreign policy and redefine its global role. The days of dictating terms and imposing its will on the international community would be over. Instead, the United States would need to embrace a more collaborative approach, working with other major powers to manage global challenges and maintain stability. One of the most significant adjustments would be the need to forge new alliances and strengthen existing ones. The United States would need to prioritize partnerships with countries that share its values and interests, both in its own hemisphere and beyond. These partnerships would be crucial for maintaining its influence in international institutions, promoting free trade, and addressing global issues such as climate change, terrorism, and nuclear proliferation. The United States would also need to rethink its approach to global governance. The Bretton Woods institutions, created in the aftermath of World War II to manage the global economy, would likely undergo significant reforms to reflect the new balance of power. The United States would need to be prepared to cede some of its control over these institutions and accept a more equitable distribution of power and influence. Furthermore, the United States would need to invest in soft power, leveraging its cultural influence, technological prowess, and democratic values to maintain its global standing. This would involve strengthening public diplomacy efforts, supporting educational exchanges, and promoting democracy and human rights abroad. By demonstrating its commitment to international cooperation and its willingness to work within a rules-based system, the United States can remain a respected and influential actor on the world stage, even in a post-dollar world. The prospect of the dollar losing its reserve currency status may seem like a daunting scenario, fraught with economic uncertainty and geopolitical risks. However, it also presents a unique opportunity for the United States to confront its long-standing structural weaknesses and emerge as a more resilient and competitive force in the global economy. This transition, while challenging, could ultimately prove to be a catalyst for much-needed reforms and a reimagining of America's role in a rapidly evolving world. The key to navigating this transition successfully lies in embracing a mindset of adaptation and innovation. The United States must move away from its reliance on debt-fueled consumption and embrace a more sustainable model of economic growth based on investment, innovation, and a renewed focus on its manufacturing base. This will require a concerted effort from policymakers, businesses, and individuals alike to embrace change, invest in the future, and adapt to the new realities of a multipolar world. A crucial first step is to address the nation's fiscal imbalances. The United States government must get its fiscal house in order by reining in spending, reducing the deficit, and tackling its burgeoning national debt. This will require difficult choices and a willingness to challenge entrenched interests, but it is essential for restoring fiscal sustainability and maintaining confidence in the U.S. economy. Failure to address these imbalances will only exacerbate the negative consequences of a dollar decline, leading to higher interest rates, inflation, and economic instability. The United States must also invest strategically in its future competitiveness. This means prioritizing investments in education, infrastructure, and research and development to foster innovation, enhance productivity, and create high-paying jobs. It also means promoting a business environment that encourages entrepreneurship, risk-taking, and the development of cutting-edge technologies. By fostering a culture of innovation and investing in its human capital, the United States can maintain its economic edge in a world where technological advancements and global competition are rapidly reshaping industries and creating new opportunities. Restoring fiscal discipline is not merely about cutting spending. It's about spending smarter. The United States government must prioritize investments that yield long-term economic benefits, such as infrastructure projects that improve transportation networks, expand access to broadband internet, and modernize the nation's energy grid. These investments would not only create jobs and stimulate economic activity in the short term, but also lay the foundation for sustained growth and competitiveness in the decades to come. Equally important are investments in education and workforce development. The United States must equip its citizens with the skills and knowledge they need to thrive in a rapidly changing global economy. This means strengthening early childhood education, improving access to affordable higher education, and providing opportunities for workers to acquire new skills and adapt to the demands of the 21st century workforce. By investing in its people, the United States can ensure that its workforce remains the most productive and innovative in the world. Furthermore, the United States must create a tax system that is fair, efficient, and conducive to economic growth. This means simplifying the tax code, closing loopholes that benefit special interests, and lowering the corporate tax rate to make American businesses more competitive globally. At the same time, the United States should explore ways to make the tax system more progressive, ensuring that the wealthiest Americans and corporations pay their fair share and that the benefits of economic growth are more equitably distributed. Beyond these domestic policy reforms, the United States must also adapt its approach to international trade. While free trade has undoubtedly benefited the U.S. economy, it has also led to job losses in certain sectors and contributed to the trade deficit. The United States must strike a better balance between promoting free trade and protecting its economic interests. This means negotiating trade deals that are fair and reciprocal, addressing unfair trade practices by other countries, and investing in domestic industries that are critical to national security and economic competitiveness. In a multipolar world where the United States can no longer dictate terms, diplomacy, strategic partnerships, and multilateral cooperation will be more important than ever. The United States must engage with other major powers, including potential rivals like China, to address common challenges and maintain a stable and prosperous global order. This means finding common ground on issues such as climate change, nuclear non-proliferation, and global health security, where cooperation is essential for achieving shared goals. It also means working with other countries to reform international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, to reflect the changing balance of power and ensure that they are more representative and responsive to the needs of all countries. The United States should also leverage its considerable soft power to advance its interests and values globally. This means strengthening public diplomacy efforts to promote understanding of American culture and values, supporting educational exchanges to foster people-to-people ties, and promoting democracy and human rights around the world. By demonstrating its commitment to international cooperation, the rule of law, and a more just and equitable world order, the United States can maintain its moral authority and influence even as its economic dominance wanes. The transition to a post-dollar world will undoubtedly test the United States' adaptability and resolve. However, it also presents a unique opportunity for renewal and reinvention. By embracing the challenges ahead, pursuing a path of fiscal responsibility, investing strategically in its future, and reimagining its role in the world. The United States can navigate this transition successfully and emerge as a stronger and more resilient nation. The road ahead may be uncertain, but by embracing change and working collaboratively with others, the United States can shape a future where it remains a leading force for good in the world. The potential decline of the United States dollar as the world's reserve currency is a complex and multifaceted issue with far-reaching implications. As we have explored, the dollar's dominance has provided the United States with significant advantages for decades, but this position of privilege is not guaranteed in perpetuity. The global economic landscape is shifting, with emerging economies gaining influence and challenging the existing order. A world in which the dollar is no longer the primary reserve currency would be vastly different from the one we know today. The United States would face significant economic challenges, including higher borrowing costs, inflation, and a diminished role in global trade and finance. Geopolitically, the United States would need to adapt to a more multipolar world, where its influence is no longer absolute. However, this potential transition is not necessarily a harbinger of doom. It presents an opportunity for the United States to address its structural weaknesses, such as its chronic trade deficits and over-reliance on debt financing. By embracing fiscal responsibility, investing strategically in its future, and forging stronger global partnerships, the United States can navigate this new landscape and emerge as a more resilient and competitive force in the global economy. The path forward will require strong leadership, a willingness to embrace change, and a commitment to international cooperation. The United States must face the challenges ahead with both pragmatism and optimism, recognizing that while the future may be uncertain, it also holds the potential for renewal and reinvention. The story of the United States dollar is far from over. The coming decades will reveal whether the Greenback can adapt to a changing world, or whether a new chapter in global monetary history is about to be written. The choices made today will determine the course of events for generations to come.